Let's get physical. It's Jordan here, backing in with this month's update on all the physical releases coming to PlayStation and Xbox consoles. As always, this video was researched, written, and edited by my man Tim. This is all down to him. I'm just lending my voice for his video. So let's take a look at what he's got for us this month. RoboCop Rogue City Collection is releasing on the 2nd of January for Xbox and PS5 in North America. It already released in Europe. The surprise cult hit of 2025 packages RoboCop Rogue City and its standalone expansion Unfinished Business into one neat physical edition with all the DLC on the disc, no downloads required. Detroit's bluntest law enforcement officer does his usual thing, patrolling crime-infested streets, interrogating suspects with limited patience, and dispensing justice in ways that somehow still require paperwork. While it's not a sprawling blockbuster, Rogue City earned praise for capturing the tone of the films. You'll hear classic lines from RoboCop himself, make morally ambiguous choices, and enjoy shooting thugs in slow, satisfying patterns. And my executive producers Mr. Awesome, Nerdy Sean, Dead Bunny's YouTube, and Dave Hudswaite have chosen this as their pick of the month. Sonic Wings Reunion is releasing on the 8th of January for PlayStation 5 and Switch in Europe. It already released in Japan. The revival of the long-running Sonic Wings shoot-'em-up series already released digitally and in Japan, but didn't get the best reception critically, with the visuals taking the brunt of the negativity and the price as well. But I think it's more about celebrating the series' cult legacy than reinventing it. It's no incredible M2 revitalization, but for fans of old-school shmups, this reunion is a rare chance to see the franchise back. And personally, Jordan speaking here, I did really enjoy it. Yes, it is a very budgeted looking experience, but it plays really well. If you enjoy the psycho shooters of old, you'll enjoy Sonic Wings Reunion. Slime Rancher 2 is releasing on the 14th of January for Xbox and PS5 in both North America and Europe. The sequel to one of the more universally adored indie hits of the last decade, the original Slime Rancher sits comfortably in its cult classic status with overwhelmingly positive acclaim and a ton of charm. Slime Rancher 2 builds on that foundation with vibrant new biomes, more slimes to corral, and expanded ranching loops, and its full launch has been met with very positive response overall on Steam. That said, although reviews praise the visuals, expanded sandbox and creative designs, they also stress that some of the core loop feels familiar rather than transformative, with resource gathering and exploration occasionally dragging or feeling unfinished. So expect more of what made the first game such a darling: soothing colors, goofy gelatinous creatures, and surprisingly addictive systems, but with some rougher edges that keep it from quite eclipsing its predecessor. And if you want this, or any of the games in this video, then please consider using the links I've put down below in the description and pinned comment for all the games. That massively helps support me, this channel, and specifically this series. So, it's worth giving Tim his moolah for all his hard work. VGP have free worldwide shipping on orders over 75 Canadian dollars. That's only like 54 American bucks. So yeah, thank you ever so much, and I greatly appreciate that. Frank and Drake is releasing on the 15th of January for PlayStation 5 in Europe, a rotoscoped action adventure that bills itself as a mix of buddy comedy and conspiracy exploration. Frank and Drake pairs his sprightly partner as they bumble through hand-animated environments. The visual style certainly has personality, but the game itself has made barely a splash in early reviews and community chatter, often landing somewhere along the lines of pleasantly forgettable. If you're curious about quirky animation and don't mind a lukewarm experience, this might fill a quiet afternoon. Otherwise, it's one of those releases that's easy to admire in concept. The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon is releasing on the 15th of January for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch in both North America and Europe. There's also a Switch 2 game key if you care about that. Falcom's Trial series is a sort of sprawling, obsessive world building that makes Tolkien look slapdash, and Trails Beyond the Horizon is the latest installment in this labyrinth saga. As usual, the game promises turn-based combat, detailed tactical systems, and characters whose backstories are so intertwined that fans have written full encyclopedias on them. The story remains under wraps ahead of release, but given the series' track record, there will be plenty of political intrigue, personal vendettas, and dialogue trees so long you might need to pop the kettle on halfway through. For newcomers, this might feel like stepping into a soap opera halfway through a 2-decade-long season, because, well, it kind of is. It's confusing but oddly compelling. For veterans, it's exactly the meticulously crafted continuation they've come to expect, full of Easter eggs, callbacks, and just the right amount of obsessive lore. Highly unlikely that this will be a good entry point for the uninitiated, and will instead be far more welcoming with an intricate web for hardcore fans. Still, it's safe to say that the Trial series remains one of the most detailed and patient exercises in JRPG storytelling history, and my executive producers Adamantium, Viz, Precision Plague, The Nemo 6, Ghost Bune, Alolo Jojo, Sora Cat, and Jeddah Crow have chosen this as their pick of the month. Centum is releasing on the 16th of January for PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch in North America. It's already released in Europe. Centum is a minimalistic psychological thriller adventure game that locks you in a room where you're challenged to escape your cell. However, a growing sense of unease reveals that there's far more at play here, and the game slowly reveals its real intentions. Dialogue choices shape the tension as you piece together what's going on, evoking an intimacy of old-school adventure games with the dread of survival horror. While the reviews are positive, they are few in numbers. Despite this, it receives strong feedback for its intriguing yet strange and unsettling tale, and my executive producer, Jennifer M., has chosen this as her pick of the month. Inspector Waffles Early Days is releasing on the 21st of January for PlayStation 5 in Europe, a top-down detective adventure inspired by classic Game Boy games. The pixel art aesthetic and simplistic 8-bit style are deliberate homages to handheld crime mysteries, complete with point-and-click mechanics, clue finding, scene investigations, and suspect interrogation. This looks like a furry game, not gonna lie, but the original PC version has been well received on Steam for its charming presentation and clever writing. So I imagine there's something of merit in here, and the physical edition brings that old school sleuthing to PlayStation 5 with all the handheld nostalgia intact, so yeah, I'm sure there is an audience for it. And my executive producer, Azrith, has chosen this as his pick of the month. One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 is releasing on the 23rd of January for PlayStation 5 in Europe, already widely available on other platforms. Originally, this released back in 2020 on PS4, Xbox One, Switch, etc. Pirate Warriors 4 finally gets its native PlayStation 5 physical outing here. The good news is that it isn't a cynical double dip, because owners of the PS4 version are offered a free upgrade digitally, so that's nice. However, if you want the disc, which many of you will out there, the PS5 version brings sharper visuals, smoother performance, faster load times, and larger on-screen enemy counts. It remains exactly what it was, an exuberant, slightly exhausting Masu retelling of One Piece's biggest arcs, now simply running better and looking cleaner. Code Vein 2 is releasing on the 27th of January for Xbox and PlayStation 5 worldwide. Bandai Namco's anime-flavored Souls-like returns once again, asking whether Dark Souls would be improved by more melodrama and characters who look like they wandered in from a particularly earnest light novel. Code Vein 2 builds on the original's formula of deliberate combat, flexible class systems, blood codes, whatever that is, and a heavy emphasis on companions, with a clear aim of smoothing off some of the rougher edges that divided players the first time around. The original carved out a solid following thanks to its accessibility and customization, even if its storytelling and tone weren't to everyone's taste, but you know those anime guys, they love a bit of this. The sequel looks set to double down rather than pivot away, refining systems rather than reinventing them. If you found the first game's angst and anime excess jarring, this will unlikely convert you, but for those fans who enjoyed it, it's very much more of the thing they already liked. And on a personal note from Tim, there is something incredibly charming about anime souls, and my executive producers Radio to Rancid, Vey, and D's Nuts have chosen this as their pick of the month. Animal Well is releasing on the 27th of January for PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch in North America, previously released in Japan and via limited run with no formal EU release. Although this ESRB physical edition is part of Lost in Cult's distribution and can be picked up in the UK via their website, and they are UK based. It's quite confusing, but this is a quietly brilliant indie that built its reputation on atmosphere, secrets, and a refusal to explain itself. A pixel art Metroidvania in the loosest sense, Animal Well is less about combat and more about exploration, environmental puzzles, and the slow realization that the game is far deeper and stranger than it first appears. Already widely praised on PC and digital consoles for its confidence and restraint, this general physical release is very much for collectors and preservationists. If you enjoy games that trust you to figure things out without a tutorial every 5 seconds, this remains one of the most distinctive indie releases of recent years, meticulously designed and far clever than it lets on. And my executive producers Dane Wilkinson and OGCIB have chosen this as their pick of the month. Puppet House is releasing on the 30th of January for PlayStation 5 in both North America and Europe, a first-person psychological horror built around escape room puzzles, mannequins that shouldn't be moving, and creaky old houses. More environmental problem solving and atmosphere than, outright combat, with stealth sections and scripted chases doing most of the heavy lifting here. Reception has been mixed, largely hinging on how much patience you have for puzzle-led horror and jump scares doing the rounds again. Still, if your idea of a good evening involves dim lighting, unsettling dolls, and slowly realizing the front door was never going to be open anyways, this should be a grimly serviceable experience. Aero 2 Black is releasing on the 30th of January for PlayStation 5 in Europe. The sequel to Madfellow's obscure rhythm shooter, Aero 2 keeps the same core idea: fly, follow the music, shoot things on the beat, but it expands it with more structured levels, boss encounters, and a heavier emphasis on precision rather than pure spectacle. The Black Edition brings it to PlayStation 5 after its digital debut, and while it's still very much a niche proposition, it remains one of the more committed attempts at blending rhythm action with traditional twin-stick shooting. But yeah, just play Res because that's amazing. The 9th Charnel, I don't know what it is, but it's releasing on the 30th of January for Xbox and PS5 in Europe. A low-budget first-person horror affair steeped in the usual imagery, cryptic symbolism, etc. The 9th Charnel, suggests a more slow exploration than jump-scare-based horror, favoring mood, sound design, and vague narrative breadcrumbs. This is very much a niche title. If you like your horror obscure and very unpolished, then this might be worth wandering into, but seriously, how many low-budget naff first-person horror games do we need every month? A Red Walking Robot is releasing on the 30th of January for PlayStation 5 in Europe, a physics-driven puzzle platformer about guiding a tiny clockwork robot through an aggressively unsafe workshop. Precision jumping, object manipulation, switches, lasers, electricity puzzles, and the constant threat of falling to your death and being politely sent back to the last checkpoint. The usual platform tropes. The Steam reception has been modest rather than euphoric. There seems to be a quietly competent puzzle game here for players who enjoy playing more than the big blockbusters. If you enjoy obscure offerings, this could be one to pick up this month. Do Not Open and OVRDARK is releasing on the 30th of January for PlayStation 5 or PS2 VR, PSVR 2, whatever it is, in North America. Two different PSVR horror experiences bundled together. Neither game is especially long, polished, or generous with player comfort or entertainment. This isn't VR horror trying to go mainstream, which is good because it won't. It's horror for people who actively enjoy this sort of thing. If that sounds appealing, you'll get your money's worth. If not, well, the title Do Not Open probably applies to the box as well. Alright, let's jump into limited run games. Yes, they're pre-orders. Mika and the Witcher's Mountain pre-orders end on the 4th of January for PlayStation 5 and Switch. This is already available in Japan. A cozy title that casts players as Mika, a young woman exploring a mysterious enchanted mountain while teaming up with her broomstick. The tone is whimsical and storybook leaning with colorful environments, light combat, and puzzle segments. Visually, it skews towards bright anime-inspired 3D with a touch of fairy tale charm and characterful NPCs. Nothing gritty, it's full of personality. The Japanese import and digital reception suggests it's a pleasant rather than amazing experience with a focus on exploration and gentle progression over challenging encounters. If you enjoy cheerful fantasy with a quirky companion and a breezy pace, this could be a cozy way to kick off your year. And my executive producer, Cartoon Soren, has chosen this as his pick of the month. Dustwind Resistance pre-orders end on the 4th of January for PlayStation 5, a little-known top-down post-apocalyptic tactical shooter focused on positioning, cover, and survival rather than reflex-heavy action. Seems like there is a lot of competition to Fallout Tactics, so if you're after more of that and don't mind losing the power suit, then it may be worth a look. Fighting Force Collection Pre-orders end on the 11th of January for PS5 and Switch, a bundled release of the original Fighting Force duology celebrating one of the late 90s attempts to bring the beat-em-up into 3D. The charm is here in its earnestness, chunky punches, the arenas that feel someone tried to make Streets of Rage but with slightly worse depth perception. Once maligned for awkward cameras, stiff controls, these games now play more like interactive nostalgia curiosities than polished fighters, the sort of thing you dust off to remind yourself of a very experimental time. If you enjoy history, wrapped in punchy chaos and unshakable late 90s energy, this collection is a time capsule worth opening. Otherwise, well, there's always Duck Station, and my executive producer Dave Horworth has chosen this as his pick of the month. Puzzle Quest Immortal Edition. Pre-orders end on the 11th of January for Xbox, PS5 and Switch. This is Puzzle Quest in its most complete form yet, bundling the original game and all its expansions into one tidy package. Researching this one is very fondly remembered on the Nintendo DS in the mid-2000s. The core hook has not changed that much, matching 3 puzzle welded to an RPG system, so very, very well. It somehow convinced an entire generation that leveling up via colored gems was a sensible use of one's time, and my executive producer Brent McLean has chosen this as his pick of the month. Total Chaos. Pre-orders end on the 11th of January for PlayStation 5, a grim, psychological survival horror that began life as an ambitious Doom 2 Total Conversion mod and has since been reborn as a standalone game. Rather than cheap jump scares, the horror here is built on atmosphere, scarce resources, and exploration across 9 chapters of decayed ruins. The soundtrack includes work from Silent Hill legend Akira Yamaoka, which is a pretty good bonus. Out of all the horror titles this month, this one may actually be worth a look. Jaws Retro Edition. Pre-orders end on the 18th of January for PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch. A nostalgia-fueled cash-in, this revives the forgettable NES title with a few quality-of-life tweaks, save anywhere, rewind trophies, etc. But otherwise, it's the same as the NES game from 1987. But wait, there's more, because they've also included a new edition of the game which has more content, apparently. What that is, I don't know, I can't be bothered to check, but it's more content. They've expanded the game to make it more of a game. The deluxe edition comes with a bunch of horrible tat, proving that for some, nostalgia is worth paying extra for, even when the game itself is not. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons Remake. Pre-orders end on the 18th of January for Xbox and PlayStation 5. An Unreal Engine 5 remake of 2013's adventure keeps the story intact. Two brothers' quest for the legendary water of life to save their father, solving puzzles and overcoming obstacles by controlling both siblings simultaneously or in local co-op. Regarded as a proto It Takes Two, the remake adds updated graphics, rebuilt characters, re-recorded music, and smoother performance while preserving the original puzzles mechanics and emotional beats. Reception has been mixed. The visual overhaul is praised somewhat, but it feels like it does lose a touch of the original's charm. And my executive producer Alex M has chosen this as his pick of the month. Spray Paint Simulator. Pre-orders end on the 25th of January for PlayStation 5. Exactly what it says on the tin. You spray paint stuff. Big stuff, small stuff, sometimes giant robots, all in the hope of climbing the thrilling ladder of Spatterville's paint hierarchy. Free spray mode exists in case anyone wants to pretend they're actually creative rather than just clicking through tedious jobs. On Steam, reaction is mixed, a power wash simulator clone, but one that appeals to someone out there. At least that's what limited run games are banking on. Alright, the import section, Play Asia territory. If you want to import any of the games, here you can do so via Play Asia. And if you click my link, you can also get 5% off if you use my code. I don't know what it is because my old code has expired and I don't know what the new one is gonna be at the time I'm recording this, so I'm sorry, but yeah, if it changes by the time I've recorded this and then the video goes out, I will mention it in the description, okay? DreadOut Remastered Collection is releasing on the 15th of January for PS5 and Switch in Japan. The North American release comes next month and this is already out in Asia. This bundles the original DreadOut and its standalone expansion Keepers of the Dark, lightly scrubbed up and sold as a remaster in the loosest possible sense. While its Indonesian folklore and lo-fi ghost photography still give it a distinctive flavor, Steam reviews are decidedly mixed, with many pointing out the clunky controls, awkward puzzles, and general jank. Those have all survived the remastering process. A cult horror curio for those patient and forgiving, but very much a reminder that atmosphere alone doesn't magically fix old problems. But if you've never played it, I highly recommend them, but I enjoy the jank. Kinda charming. And my executive producer, Instacritic, has chosen this as his pick of the month. Dark Auction is releasing on the 29th of January for PS5 and Switch in Japan, a narrative-forward mystery adventure game from Izanagi Games with a scenario written by Rika Suzuki from Another Code, Hotel Dusk Room 215, etc., character art by Gangsta, whoever that is, and music from Monster Hunter and Shin Megami Tensei Talent, which is an impressive pedigree. Set in 1981 West Germany, you follow 18-year-old Noah as he ventures into an ancient castle on the trail of his missing father after a shadowy auction of mysterious items leads to something very wrong. Exploration revolves around 3D environments, clue gathering, and quirky word cloud deduction system that turns keywords into evidence. And yes, there really seems to be an auction mechanic where memories become currency in pursuit of the truth. Hotel Dusk was such an incredible series cut short after just 2 titles, and although it's only loosely related, I hope this is as interesting as it sounds, because there's definitely space for titles like that again. And my man Tim has chosen this as his pick of the month. Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8 Remake Destiny and Strategy Expansion Pack is releasing on the 29th of January for PlayStation 4, PS5 and Switch in Japan and Asia, but only the Southeast Asian versions have English. The one with the English cover, okay? If you want to import it, you get that one. The definitive update to Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8 First Full Remake. This bundle combines the base game with the new Destiny and Strategy Expansion Pack, adding a host of new strategic elements and content. This now includes Chinese audio, the voice acting, because in the base game it was only Japanese, which is kind of weird, but it also has enhanced historical events and traits, expanded official titles and scenarios, plus tools such as in-game editing for deeper customization. This release is essentially the most complete Three Kingdoms 8 experience you can get, and this is also the only way of playing this on consoles, because this is not even releasing digitally in the West, which is weird. And my executive producers, Firm Returns, Robotech, and myself, it is our pick of the month. GigaSword is releasing on the 29th of January for PS5 and Switch in Japan, a retro-inspired action puzzle Metroidvania that's been over 5 years in the making. You'll hack and slash through demons, solve weight-based puzzles by using the sword to press switches or unlock doors, another title in the crowded genre, and unfortunately early reception has not been the most positive, though some are enjoying its mix of thoughtful puzzle design and action Metroidvania exploration, though it remains a niche pick rather than a breakout hit. Here are some Japanese releases that have already released in the West. And here is a Japanese release that does not have English. Alright, new year, new feature. I am doing a community spotlight for these videos too. Hooray! Although since the videos are often much longer than my weekly Switch videos, I am keeping this exclusive to my Patreon producers. It would be chaos if it was a free-for-all. I don't have time for that, and I do not want to burden Tim with that either, so only my executive producers on Patreon. Instacritic sent in this photo picking up the 2 volumes of the Nightmare box. That takes me back to petrol station VHSs and DVD racks where you get bundles of B-movies stapled together. There's definitely a bit of charm to that. Mr. Awesome sent in this photo picking up Final Fantasy Tactics. Such good artwork there. Akihiko Yoshida's artwork is timeless, but like all the amazing talent at Square that they had back in the day, they all went freelance. I get it, they earn a lot more money that way with just their name alone, but it's sad to see these big names leave the companies, like the legends are moving on and being less prolific as a result. I want to see more work from them, not less. Lolo Jojo sent in this photo showing a double helping of Persona 3. I've always been more of a Persona 4 fan myself. I'm especially not much of a fan of the portable edition, but I do want to try the remake one day. These Nuts sent in this photo with a rather bloated looking collector's edition of what I assume is Witchspring R. Really nice game. I could just look at what's included in that big giant bloated box, but I'd rather just imagine it, to be honest. Jennifer M sent in this photo of Metaphor ReFantasio, which is when the Persona guy at Atlus got sick of making Persona and left to form his own company, only to make, well, another Persona type game published by Atlus. Supposedly pretty good. Firm Returns sent in some Xbox games, a couple of classics for sure. Where's Rayman these days? Is he too kiddie for the gaming landscape? Remember when it was perfectly fine for adults to play Rayman on the PS1 and it was awesome? Gaming was better before it was completely mainstream. Adamantium sent in this photo. Quite funny that of the 7 photos that were sent in, 2 of them have potion permit. I guess that's because it's been going like ridiculously cheap, especially on disc-based systems. I don't know if it's good or not, but they've been willing to drop the price to almost unmissable levels. And that's it. If you want to join the producers, I think a spot will be opening up soon since a couple of members recently cancelled theirs for the new year, and I think there will be like one more space once their access runs out. I'm not sure how Patreon deals with that, but keep an eye out. The link is below, but if not, no worries. I appreciate your support either way by watching the whole video, by purchasing via the links below, or leaving a comment. Speaking of which, I want to know who you are. Please leave me a robot in honor of the RoboCop, okay? Thank you to my producers on Patreon. Here they all are, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Take care.